Hey there, Catherine Langman here. Welcome back to another episode of the Scale My Shopify Store podcast. So we're into April now, and we are unbelievably into the second quarter of 2024. I feel like the first quarter has flown by quite quickly. Certainly Easter caught me by surprise this year. It was a bit early, so I feel like I can be forgiven. And really, we get to the end of the month, but also the end of the quarter. And I like to do that quarterly review and really, look at how we're going over the 90-day period. And that was kind of what I was talking about on the podcast last week. So I guess I wanted to start by asking, how have you gone with your quarterly review? Have you done it yet? If you haven't done it yet and you haven't listened to last week's podcast episode, I definitely want to recommend that you go and do that. And I also want to suggest that you read my blog that I also shared the other day, which is called When the Going Gets Tough, Here's How You Get to the Other Side. And I will link to that on the podcast show notes page for this episode, or you can, of course, just go to scalemyshopifystore.com and head to the podcast menu, and you'll actually find the blogs in there as well. Basically, in that blog, I walk you through 4 steps that you should follow if you have found yourself or found your business revenue has been declining a little bit year on year. Certainly, I know that a lot of e-commerce brands have experienced a dip in sales or just inconsistent or unpredictable sales through February and March. And, so that's, I guess, also a problem that I want to address on today's podcast, because when your revenue declines, the common knee-jerk reaction is to assume that you've stuffed up in some way, or you've not done something that you should have, and you've caused the downturn, hopefully not by your own incompetence. Hopefully you're not thinking that. Or just to feel as though you're a failure and just not cut out for this entrepreneurship gig. I mean, there is a whole lot of anxiety, that many of us entrepreneurs feel from time to time when things don't go to plan. Or it's also quite common, I see, for business owners to blame poor sales or dropping sales on the state of the economy, and to allow this assumption to hold you back from taking any new actions that might improve your results. And, all of those things can play a part into this, right? And I'm not suggesting that outside forces or maybe a lack of skills or knowledge sometimes doesn't cause these things to happen. But either way, you're liable to end up in the same place, which is not investing time or money in your marketing to drive your business forwards. Obviously, if whatever you're doing with your marketing right now isn't working and it's not generating the results that you're looking for or that you expected and planned for, then you need to stop doing that and do something else, right? Because first of all, just because your sales might decline sometimes, it does not make you a failure in business, nor does it mean that consumer demand for your products has all but dried up and your business is doomed. It doesn't mean that at all. All entrepreneurs and all businesses go through this. It's extremely common. And if you never went through this, I would suggest that, you probably haven't pushed hard enough to grow your business yet, However, if you are experiencing a sales slump right now, and, I just want to, I guess, let you know that not taking any action, not pivoting with what you're doing to rectify that situation will absolutely lead you to that dismal ending that you might be fearing. And I don't want that for you. I want you to have the opposite, right? So today on the show, I really want to help you to identify what is the real issue going on in your business, and what is the right action that you need to take to fix it. And to that end, we're going to talk about 3 critical elements of your marketing, and they are visibility, demand, and conversions. So let me first, I guess, just start by explaining what I mean by those 3 things. So visibility is really how well known is your business or brand, how big is your audience, how many people actually interact with your business or brand, I guess largely online, given your e-commerce businesses, how many people know you exist, right? And how many people are really in that warm, engaged audience? So brand visibility is that first one. Second one is demand. And this is really, it kind of encompasses two things. I mean, generally speaking, for any product that exists on the market, product or service, there will be some kind of demand, right? Because we all make and sell products and services to fulfill some kind of a need. But by consumer demand, I essentially mean how many, like what is the level of demand for your stuff right now? And, perhaps it might be a natural lull in your sales cycle. If you sell a seasonal product, for example, maybe there is a natural lull in your sales cycle. Or is it, if perhaps it could be a lag effect from visibility. If you haven't been working on building your audience, then there will be less people who know about you and therefore less demand for your products, right? So demand, demand being two things there, the actual people who need your stuff anyway. By that, I mean, just people generally who need the kind of product that your product, or maybe they have the kind of problem or need that your product solves. So that's a little bit more general. And then, you want to look at the demand for, people who are literally wanting stuff from you. So there's the category and there's you, the entity, you, the retailer, and you need to really look at both. But then by conversions, I mean, this should be easy. This is people who are literally converting into a sale. Obviously, there's there's a whole lot of conversions across all your different platforms. But by, in this instance, I am really talking about purchase conversion. So those are the three things and what I mean by them. And I really wanted to, I guess, share a little bit more of a story about each, just to illustrate this a little bit further. So let me first start talking about visibility here and share a little story about my very first e-commerce job. And so some of you may already know this story, some of you probably don't. My very first job in e-commerce, in fact, my very first professional job was in e-commerce, which seems crazy when, if you can see how old I look, I'm not a spring chicken. So my very first professional job after university was at a .com boom time startup back in 1999. So, before that turn of the century and the year 2000 panic and all of that kind of stuff. And so, of course, back in 1999, e-commerce was so very different. There was no Google, there was no social media. People were accessing the internet on the old dial-up modems. Lots of people didn't even have a computer. Nobody had mobile phones like we know them these days. We didn't have smartphones. None of us were walking around with the internet in our pocket. There was no Shopify, WordPress, BigCommerce, or any of these platforms that make it really easy to build a website. You had to code everything from scratch. So it was a very expensive exercise to start an e-commerce business. And so out of university, I got a job at this startup that was actually aiming to sell artwork on an e-commerce store, which I would say is an even mad idea now in 2024, because fine art is it's not mad. I mean, people do it extremely successfully, but it's not an easy thing to do now, is what I'm saying. It was an incredibly difficult thing to do then. But visibility was the initial problem. Like, people just did not know that websites were there. There was no Google, there was no search engine, there was no method really for websites to list themselves anywhere. I mean, literally to, build an audience and get anybody to know that you even existed, you had to start by creating your own database. We were starting by doing things like traditional advertising. We were doing print advertising in magazines, and we were doing, traditional PR in news media. We were doing outdoor advertising, like your billboard type you know, on the bus stop type stuff. We were doing radio advertising, all sorts of stuff. Like literally, it was about just trying to get that business and that brand's name known. And, you know, for people to actually find out that it existed. Ultimately, that particular business did end up needing to have a physical premise. You know, it was far too, you know, early to market for that sort of an e-commerce product. Anyway, so that's what I mean by visibility. Demand, I want to share a little bit of a story, a couple of stories really. And so again, some of you know that my first business, so obviously this was not my first job in e-commerce, but my first business that I owned was a modern cloth nappy business. And that started in 2006, I think. And you know, it being modern cloth nappies or diapers if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, it was a really new invention. There was, I think, one or two other brands that went to market before we did in Australia, but it was a very, very new product innovation. It wasn't an invention. I mean, nappies and diapers have existed since the dawn of, well, probably not since the dawn of time, but, you know, for many, many years, right? And so nappies themselves were not new, but modern cloth nappies definitely were new. I mean, I was selling these products at a time where the parents themselves had been nappied in disposables. So, you know, a whole generation had been missed since the old-fashioned terry toweling square cloth nappies had been used. And so, you know, because this felt so new and different in the marketplace, there really was no demand for this kind of product. Obviously, there was a demand for nappies, but the majority of the market was, you know, the demand was for disposable nappies, not these modern cloth nappies. So you know, the issue there initially was not about conversions, for example. It was about visibility and demand. And, you know, in terms of the demand, we had an uphill battle when it came to really educating the marketplace and really, you know, really building that desire and demand for the kind of products that we sold. Whereas, you know, a lot of the clients and brands that I work with now, that's not the issue. You know, they're selling products that are easily recognizable. They are products you know, that are already the desired solution for the problems and needs that their target audience has. There's no mystery about how the products work. It's not true for 100% of my clients, for sure, but this would be the majority. You know, they're not selling products that need that education step, if you know what I mean. Whereas, you know, there might still be times in their sales cycle throughout the year where their sales have peaks and troughs. An example might be, you know, it's pretty, you might have to try, you know, do things to stimulate demand for sunglasses in winter, right? So, you know, do you need to create demand because your product is a brand new innovation and you need to go through that education phase, or do you just need to stimulate demand because it's at a time of year where it's not really a natural purchase time of year for your stuff? And then conversions, really, this is where you are capitalizing already on your existing demand from your audience or not, right? You know, if the problem is conversions, you already have some brand visibility. There's already demand for your stuff, but you are just not capitalizing on that because there's a conversion issue. And so here I want to kind of share a story. Many of you would know that I started working with Christy from Baby Aiders Australia when she was very new as the distributor in Australia for that brand, probably 2015 or thereabouts. And initially, the website that she was retailing these products on just did not convert. It was, look, you know, a lot of websites in 2015, it was probably on WordPress, I can't remember now. You know, it was pretty basic compared to what she would have now by a long stretch. However, you know, this is not an uncommon problem where, you know, businesses, they put a website up, they're using a theme, maybe it's a free theme, maybe it's a premium theme, it doesn't really matter, but, you know, just putting something up, changing the colors, but, you know, putting your images in where the theme says, but not necessarily really thinking any further about how to design or construct this website in a way that might convert. And so in that scenario, you know, that website did not convert. She was doing all of the other marketing elements. She was, you know, running advertising. She was, you know, doing the email marketing. She was doing all kinds of things to get traffic to the website. It just was not converting. So, you know, then of course she redesigned that website. You know, we went through this whole customer research project. We, you know, got the navigation and the design and the content and everything really dialed in to incorporate all of those conversion elements for an e-commerce website. And her website went on to convert at 5% or higher pretty regularly, pretty consistently over many years. So, you know, really looking at those conversions and you know, if you do have a low conversion rate, or even if your conversion rate looks really good, I mean, you know, there's a next step that you can take there to assess whether those conversions are coming from new customers or returning customers. Because, you know, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you don't make any sales unless you're running a discount or an incentive type promotion, then you may be finding that you're not acquiring new customers, and you know, your sales are largely coming from those returning customers, in which case conversions are still a problem, right? So then how do you know if you do have a visibility problem, a demand problem, or a conversions problem, or maybe it's a mix of all three, right? So if it's visibility, I mean, I would say that visibility is probably a problem for more business owners than realize it, because, you know, oftentimes it precedes, you know, one of the other two problems. And I guess, you know, working on visibility is generally not something that's going to give you that instant hit of sales either, right? So people think it doesn't work. So I want to ask you, when is the last time you actually focused any of your marketing efforts to that, you know, really building brand awareness, really building visibility to new audiences, you know, people who don't know you exist, have never, you know, interacted with your business or your brand before? And the types of exercises or types of marketing strategies that are going to work there would be, you know, like any kind of PR where you're, you know, working with influencers or collaborating with other brands, or, you know, experts or personalities, or traditional PR, or anywhere where you can tap into an audience that does, you know, and have that kind of introduction. It could be, you know, definitely running advertising, you know, it could be like your, you know, get like, what is the words? I'm trying to spit out the words. Page post engagement or video views type ad campaigns on social media, where you're really just trying to attract and engage an audience. Yes, you know, obviously most of you are going to be doing the prospecting cold traffic ads as well for, you know, driving sales. But if you're not also just doing that extra step where you're really, you know, getting some just some extra engagement and reach on the content that's not necessarily salesy, but is going to be warming up the right audience to then want to buy from you, then that's definitely another missed step. So, you know, anything that's going to get you in front of a new audience, even things like expos, markets, you know, anything, again, like where you're going to get that introduction to a new audience. So that's really the assessment there for you, is when is the last time that you did that? I mean, when's the last time you worked on building your email list, you know, or have you been relying on just the people who are already subscribed to your list? When is the last time you worked on your search engine optimization, your SEO? You know, have you been getting new people to your website that way? So, you know, becoming discoverable, you know, maybe trying to master another channel, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Pinterest, whether it's YouTube, whatever is right for your business and your audience, right? You know, trying to get more people to discover that your business and your brand exists. If you haven't done that for a long time, then visibility is a problem. And then, how do you tell whether demand is a problem? And so this is where you just need to really think logically, is now a peak or a trough time in your sales cycle? What is that natural buying cycle for your kind of customers? And at the end of the day, I mean, don't just tell me, oh, my customers need my stuff every day of the year. Maybe they do, but it may not be that every day of the year they're thinking about going and buying your kind of stuff. Maybe they are. I mean, if you sell food stuff, for example, they probably are. But, there definitely are going to be times of the year where there is that natural kind of sales cycle. And so, that would be the first assessment. Is it a peak sales time or a trough sales time? And if it is that kind of natural dip, then what kind of efforts could you make to stimulate demand, make people actually be prepared to part with their money at a time of year when they wouldn't naturally spend money on that kind of stuff, right? And that might be where you need to pull out some incentives. Or, there might be other ways that you can talk about your stuff. I mean, I spoke about sunglasses in winter. What about people who love to go skiing in the snow? I mean, obviously you wouldn't wear them while you're actually skiing, but if you're just visiting the snow or you're off the skis, then presumably you're going to need to protect your eyes in that glare. Or maybe you're heading to a sunny part of the country for a warmer holiday, while the other part of the country, obviously in Australia, head north in winter because we're freezing in the south. Anyway, whatever you can do to try and stimulate some demand in an off cycle, or if you know that you have the kind of product that is quite innovative and different in terms of other sorts of products customers might buy to solve the same problem or to meet the same need. For example, the modern cloth nappies, like I spoke about. Do you need to do more education in your to your audience? Or do you need to launch a new product? Or do you need to do some kind of a promotion? So work out, if demand is an issue, is it a peak or trough sales type demand issue, or is it this is a new and innovative product that I need to do more education on type of issue? And then what do you do about that? Do you need to just really go hard with that education and get it out, with those visibility strategies? Do you need to, stimulate demand by launching a new product or running a promotion? All right. And then, if you need, to figure out if you've got a conversion issue, I mean, you start by comparing your conversion rate from the last month and maybe the last quarter to those same times last year and see how you compare, right? What is different? Is it better or worse? And then also review whether those conversions are coming from new customers or returning customers, and compare that as well to the same time last year. If you're on Shopify, that's very easy because you can just head to the analytics reports and choose the customers over time report, and it will give you that information really, really simply. So, obviously there's also a whole lot of other areas where you can actually check out the conversion data, but just to begin with, be looking at it on your website. And then of course you can have a look at platform by platform, have conversions, is the conversion rate different, this time this year or the same time last year? And then, once you identify where your issue is, what kind of marketing do you focus on to solve it? So typically speaking, you probably find that there's more than one of these things that you do need to focus on. And I guess I've probably touched on some of those strategies already. With the visibility, it's, how can you get your brand discovered by more people? The low-hanging fruit or the easiest actions is probably going to be the paid advertising. And, those sorts of ads are really, really cheap. Obviously, you do need to have the right kind of content to work with it. And then, other things like list builders, you could use a list building giveaway and again, use your ads for that. Collaborations, maybe put a prize pack together with some brands that are complementary to yours, but don't cross over. You're not competing with each other is the words I'm looking for. You could, do that as ads to build your list, but you could also introduce each other to your own existing email databases. And that's a nice kind of warm introduction as well. But, the low-hanging fruit is definitely going to be using paid traffic to get more people engaging and discovering your brand, and then potentially sending some of this content out on some other channels, whether it's another social media channel like TikTok or Pinterest or even YouTube. And then with demand, again, like, do you need to launch a new product or work towards launching a new product? If you know that most of your sales are coming from new customers, but not really from returning customers, that is when the demand issue is you need to have some reason for your existing customers to come back. And so that's where launching a new product or running some kind of a promotion that really entices your existing customers to come back. Those two things will work to increase sales conversions to your existing customer base. If it's new customer acquisition though, and you're getting all of your sales from your existing customers and you're not winning enough new customers, that's actually a little bit of a harder issue it's a harder nut to crack. Typically, it's going to be visibility and demand hand in hand there. Again, it may come down to the sales cycle. It may come down to education. So hopefully the comments that I mentioned earlier will help. But then more often than not, it's going to be a conversion issue when it's a new customer. You're not getting enough new customers coming in. So I want to tell you this story. I'm going to keep it anonymous, but one of our clients has been in this situation where they get great returning sales. They get pretty good sales in terms of revenue, right? But a lot of it's coming from returning customers, which is amazing. Like, they've got really wonderful customers who come back and buy from them again and again over the years, which is excellent. But anytime they're not running a product launch or a promotion, their sales are dipping. And that's because the new customers just aren't converting on the website. The irony is they are actually engaging really well with all of their other marketing platforms, but the website, which was launched a year ago, really was not well designed to help potential customers to find what they want. So in terms of a navigation and a content layout perspective, it's really, really hard to find all of their products, to figure out what they want, what's going to suit them, and all of that kind of stuff. So the user experience and the navigation on the website is really hindering new customers from being able to buy from them, right? And so really fixing that problem is the key. So once you've worked out, what is the core problem for you? What do you need to do to fix it? What do you do next? Obviously, go through those steps that we've discussed now. But if you do feel like you need some help doing a much more detailed audit across your website and your marketing platforms, which obviously you'll need to do if you have experienced a sales slump, you need to either do this yourself, or if you do want a bit of help, we actually have a really low-cost way that you can get started, and that would be to book one of our audits. And you can read all about those on our new website. So they're all on our new website at productpreneurmarketing.com. I know that's a tough URL to remember, so we'll put it on the podcast show notes page for this episode as well. But productpreneurmarketing.com, and you can find the audits in the menu and just take a look at that. Now, I guess I hinted to this already before, but typically you are going to need to work on more than one of these three areas in your marketing at any one time. Oftentimes, visibility goes hand in hand with, any other efforts that you're working on. And generally what we find is that we're cycling between them every week and every month. We're always